Om Sada Shiva Samarambha Shankaracharya
Shankaracharya
Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Veeryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya, everybody. So we had finished verse number 12, and today we can start verse number 13. So if you'll unmute yourself and you can chant with me. Ate kanta dhanagata chinta Vatula kim tava nasti niyanta Trijagati sajjana sangati reka
Trijagati Sanjati
Trijagati sajjana sangati reka
Trijagati Sanjana Sangati
Bhavati bhavarnavatarane nauka
Bhavati Bhavana Varani Nauka.
Okay. So Kate Kanta Dhanagata Chinta. So Kate is Kahate, which means who are you or why are you? And Chinta, you are thinking. Kanta is the wife or the beloved one, and Dhana is wealth. So Kate Kanta Dhanagata Chinta. Why are you worrying about the wife or the beloved one? Or why are you worrying about your money, your possessions, your name, your fame? So Shankara is asking, how is it that instead of focusing on the higher aspect of your life, which is Atmajnanam, instead of figuring out who you really are, instead of inquiring into your real nature, how is it that you are constantly obsessed with thoughts of Kanta and Dhana, with your wife and your beloved one, and wealth and power and name and possession? How is it that you're constantly preoccupied? Then he says Vatula. Vatula is the one whose mind is under the spell of Vayu. So Vayu is of course the wind. Vatula is a person whose mind is distracted. Under the spell of Vayu means just as the wind moves a boat here and there on the sea, this wind also is distracting the mind. The mind is not able to remain concentrated. So Vatula here means distracted one. One whose mind is distracted. Kim tava nasti niyanta. Do you think, Kim tava, do you think niyanta nasti, niyanta na asti? Niyanta means a controller, a creator, or a sustainer. So do you think there is no creator in the universe? This is what is being asked. What does it mean? We see, you look around you, you can see the universe and constantly in motion, conforming to 1,000 different laws. One of those laws, goes out of order, and there is chaos. The gravitation goes out of order, there is chaos. The earth begins to rotate slightly with less speed, there is chaos. The earth begins to go out of the orbit, there is chaos. So the earth is constantly the universe is conforming to 1,000 different minute laws. And therefore, how can we accept that creation is random? The theory of creation by chance, which a lot of people subscribe to, especially scientists, Shankara is saying this cannot be true. Such a precise universe cannot come as a random creation. And therefore, there has to be some intelligent principle that sustains the creation, that has created it, that sustains it, and into which the entire creation will resolve afterwards. And this intelligent principle is Brahman, which cannot be revealed by speech. And why it cannot be revealed by speech? Because it is because of Brahman that the very speech is revealed. It cannot be comprehended by the mind, but it is because of that Brahman that the mind has the capacity to comprehend. It cannot be seen by the eyes, but it is because of that Brahman that eyes have the capacity to see, to perceive. And therefore, Shankara is saying that just don't look at the universe as you find it. There is a different dimension to the universe beyond perception. And if you do not take into account that extra dimension which is beyond your perception, how have you ever taken life into account at all? It's an incomplete perception that you have. And therefore, Kim tava naste niyanta. Do you really think that there is nothing beyond the sustainable creation? And there is nothing beyond this perceptible creation? There is. There is substratum, there is a adhishthanam, which sustains this entire creation. Shankara is pointing out, instead of being awed by these thoughts, I try to figure out who am I, what is my relation to the world, what is my relation to Ishvara. These are the thoughts which I should be occupying myself with. And Shankara is amazed. How is it that you permit yourself to be completely preoccupied with daily concerns and worries about Kanta and Dhana, about beloved and money? So he says, do you really imagine that it is you who are supporting this family of yours? Is it your conception that it is you who are supporting the wife and the child? Do you not realize that there is a creator, there is a Niyanta who has created this world and is completely supporting it? And therefore he says, Trijagati Sajjana Sangata Sangati Aika. So Trijagat means three worlds. The three worlds are Bhuloka, this world, Bhuvarloka, the intermediate world, and Suvarloka or Swargaloka, the heavens. So Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. This world, the intermediate world, and the heavens. He says, in all these three worlds, Trijagati, in all these three worlds, Sajjana, Sangati, Aika, Bhavati, Bhavarnava, Tarane, Nauka. You have to rearrange those words. He says, Trijagata, in these three worlds, Sajjana Sangatihi. Sajjana Sangatihi means Satsanga, company of good people, is what? Bhavati. Sajjana Sangati Bhavati. Sajjana Sangati is Eka Nauka. So that Eka from the first word, Sangati Raika, has to be connected to Nauka of the last word in that line. So Sajjana Sangati Eka Nauka. That Sajjana Sangati, Satsanga, is Eka Nauka, the one boat for what? Bhava Arnava Tarane. So Bhava means to be. So another name for Bhava is Samsara. Bhava Arnavam is the ocean of Samsara. Tarane is to cross. So he's saying all these three worlds, you must realize that Satsanga, company of good people, is all there is. It is the only one path you have to cross the ocean of Samsara. So Bhava, as I said, is Samsara. Why is it called Bhava? Bhava means to become. And because in this Samsara, we are always becoming something or the other. There is life of birth and death. I want to be this. I'm not satisfied with what I am today. I want to be better. I want to have more money. Always becoming is there. So he says this samsara is comparable to the ocean, Arnava. Why? Because there is no end to it at all. And we know from our earlier studies that as long as I am searching for this Purnatvam, this fulfillment of my life in the external world, I will never find it. Because what I am searching is really my own nature. Purnatvam is my own true nature. As long as I do not recognize that and I look outwards, this samsara is going to be compared to ocean. So you are neither completely floating nor have you drowned. You struggle, You go down, you come up, you get a breath of fresh air. Again, you are pulled down by the waves, suffocated and struggling. Arnava. Neither totally dead, nor totally alive. You are struggling all the time. Hence Arnava. How is one to cross this ocean? Eka Nauka. With the help of that one boat, which is what? Sangatihi Sajjana Sangatihi. Satsanga. Sajjanam is good people. So that is represented Sat over here. Sangatihi Sangaha. Satsangaha. Association with the wise people or the noble people. That is the only way to cross the ocean of samsara in all these three worlds. So in the company of good people, why is it? Why are we focusing so much on the company of good people? Because in that company, we are protected from the attack of the world. There is no honor, there is no dishonor, there is no sense of hurt and guilt. In the company of all these people, we are beyond that. It's not that these experiences will not be there, but it is that there is a certain maturity in these people, and whenever I have a problem, I can talk to them. So being with wise people makes me discriminate, gives me viveka. And because of this viveka, I slowly discover a certain space in my mind. I slowly discover certain poise in spite of all the experiences of life. Today, every experience disturbs me. Every small experience, I am upset, I am worried, I am anxious. And the world around me has been such that it puts a premium on my thinking that negative thinking and negative behavior are normal. Because all around me, I see people engaging in negative behavior, in negative thinking. So I get the impression that these kind of thinking patterns, these kind of expressions are basically normal, that of being a human. And more often than not, people tell me that don't worry if you have some negative thoughts. Once in a way you have behaving negatively, don't worry, because these are all coping mechanisms. We think of all these things. But the point is, when you are in the company of noble people, when you're in satsanga, all these hurts and problems are there, but they will not arise because the wisdom of the people is available to you. The proper perception of life is available to you. The right perception, viveka, discrimination protects us from these sort of problems. And therefore Shankaracharya says, in all the three worlds, satsanga is the only path, the only boat, the only ship that can enable you to cross the ocean of samsara. Okay. Now we'll go to verse number 14. So please unmute yourself and you can chant with me. Jatilo mundi lunchita keshaha.
Jatilo mundi lunchita
Kashayambara bahukrita veshaha.
Kashayambara
Pasyannapi chana pasyati moodaha.
Pashyannapi chana pashyati moodaha
Udara nimittam bahukrita veshaha.
Udara nimittam bahukrita veshaha.
Okay. So, in our tradition, in the Indian tradition, there are different types of renunciates, sadhus, and very many belong to different traditions. So these first few words are indications of those traditions. So he's talking about sannyasis. The first one is a Jatila sannyasi. Jatila means people who are having knotted hair. So in that tradition, they don't comb their hair, their hairs are a knot only. Then Jatilaha, there is one. Mundi. Mundi is people who shave their head. Then the third category of sannyasis, Lunchita Keshaha. So here also, they have no hair, but they don't shave their head. Lunchita Keshaha means you are supposed to pluck out your hair one by one. So very, very painful, but that is the way that they keep their head clean. Lunchita kesha, plucking out hair one by one. And some people, kashaya ambaraha. So kashaya is saffron, ambara is sky. So kashaya is one sort of people, ambara is another sort of people. Kashaya means what? Kashaya means people who wear saffron clothes. Ambara means people who don't wear any clothes at all. Sky is the clothes. So Digambara Jain, they say, right? Ambara, that's where it comes from. So Kashaya, Ambara, Kashaya saffron clothes. And Ambara means people who do not wear clothes at all. Some sadhus don't wear any kind of clothes. And Shankara says, Bahukrita Veshaha. People wear, the sannyasis wear varieties of costumes, varieties of robes, varieties of dresses. So Kashaya, saffron. Why is saffron considered sacred? Why is that saffron color sacred? Because it is the color of fire. And fire stands for renunciation. Because why does fire stand for renunciation? Because in any homam, any yajna, where do you give the offering? You give the offering to Agni Devata. And therefore, whatever you are having is handed over to Agni Devata. Therefore, here, fire itself stands for renunciation. That is why saffron is the color of the sannyasi's dress. Then the other one was mundi, shaving your head. What is the symbolism behind shaving the head? The hair represents beauty, hair represents attachment, bodily attachment. And therefore, shaving off the hair is symbolically renouncing that bodily attachment. Then what about the other one? Why do some people have knotted hair? Again, groomed hair represents beauty, attachment. And therefore, not grooming your hair symbolically represents the renouncing of that attachment. So these external trappings, external ideas, symbolisms, they are used to convey a certain value of life. Renunciation, austerity, pursuit of jnanam, all these. But Shankara says that not everybody who puts on these robes, Shankara says it with a lot of regret. Unfortunately, he says, Bahukrita Veshaha, people put on various dresses. For what purpose? Udara Nimittam. Udara means stomach. Udara Nimittam means for the purpose of the stomach. So they have to broadly interpret that as people put on various sannyasi dresses, not solely for what it is meant for, which is what it is meant for, the pursuit of knowledge alone. You have to renounce everything so that you can pursue knowledge alone. But people don't do that. They put on various robes for various reasons. And here he uses the word Udara Nimittam. They put on these robes as a profession, as a business to make more money. In fact, those who have been to Haridwar and Rishikesh and many such places, you know that there are various Anna Kshetras. Anna Kshetrams are there. And if you are a sannyasi, that very dress is your ticket to getting a roof over your head for the night and getting food also. And therefore, many people also who don't want to work, who don't want to have any effort in their lives, they wear these saffron robes as a means of escaping responsibility. You just wear that, you wander from place to place, you get food, you get a roof over your head, and everything is okay. So Shankara says, Paschyanapi, even though that person sees, what does he see? He sees himself wearing those sannyasi dress. And he knows what his way of life should be, but Jana Paschyati Modaha. That person, he sees but does not see. He does not follow the actual way that a sannyasi is supposed to live. And to put a more generous tint to it, some people may renounce with very good intentions. But then they find it very difficult to sustain those values on the long term. So there is a gap between what I am and what I want to be. So that's why sannyasa means samyak nyayasa. Nyasa means what? Renunciation. Samyak is a adjective adding completeness to it. So sannyasi is samyak nyasa, complete renunciation. And we are not talking about external renunciation only, but we are talking about the real renunciation is internal renunciation. Without internal renunciation, there is no sannyasi at all. And those who have done the Gita, at least up to the 6th chapter, they know. 5th chapter has Nyeyasa Nitya Sannyasi, Yona Dveshti Na Kankshati. Understand that person to be an eternal sannyasi who does what? Na Dveshti. He does not hate. Na Kankshati. He does not like also. He has no likes and dislikes at all. That is sannyasa. That is a real sannyasa. And therefore Krishna says in chapter 6, Nahi asanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati Arjuna. Without giving up that attachment, you cannot become a sannyasi at all, hey Arjuna. Okay, we'll do one more verse and then we'll break for any questions. So verse number 15. Please unmute yourself. Angam galitam palitam mundam.
Angam
galitam palitam mundam
Dashana vihinam jatam tundam.
Dashana vihinam jatam tundam
Vriddho yati grahitva dandam.
Vriddho yati grihitva dandam
Tadapi na munchyat yasha pindam.
Tadapi namunchatyasha pindam.
Very, very beautiful lines. Now he's talking about a person who has matured, at least his body has matured. So angam galitam, the body, angam, has become old, it has become weak. And together with that, what has happened? Mundam palitam. The hair has turned grey or has turned bald. So angam galitam, palitam mundam represents the aging of the body, represents the Shadvikara is in operation. The 6 changes of the body are in operation. And not only that, tundam jatam. So tundam is the mouth. And tundam jatam, this mouth has become dashana vihinam. So dashanam means teeth, vihinam is without. So jatam tundam dashana vihinam, this mouth has lost all its teeth. So he's presenting the picture of the person. A person whose body has grown old and weak. His hair is either grey or he has no hair. His mouth has lost all its teeth. And vriddho yati grahitva danda. So vriddha is the man, is the old person. So this vriddha represents this entire thing. This angam, galitam, palitam, mundam, jatam, tundam, dashana, vihina. Those adjectives are to be applied to vriddha, the old man. So vriddha yati grahitva dandam. This man whose body has become old and weak, whose hair has turned grey, who has lost all its teeth, yati. He goes about, walks around the place, grahitva dandam. He is not able, because of the weakness of the body, he is not able to move around without a stick. So dandam grahitva. He holds a stick. Dandam grahitva holds to keep himself erect. Now, what is Shankara saying? Normally, when the body grows old, the mind is also supposed to mature. With the maturity of the body, the mind should also mature, because old age is supposed to bring in knowledge. Old age is supposed to bring in jnanam. Old age is supposed to dilute your ragadvesha, dilute the attachments and the hate, dislikes and all that. It has to dilute. But Shankara wails this person, tadapi. Tadapi is even though. Even though is what? Even though is this whole set of things which you have said. Angam, galitam, palitam, mundam, jatam, tundam, dasana, vihinam, grihitva, dandam. The entire thing is represented by tadapi, even though that body is incapable of enjoying any sense pleasures. Because Prakriti, nature, is unforgiving. And the body growing old is Prakriti's way of telling you that enough of sense pleasures, it is time to turn to more serious matters like Vedanta. Shankara says, Tadapi, even though this has happened, na munchati asha pindam. Munchati is the grip that he has. Na munchati, he is not able to release his grip on what? Asha pindam. On pindam is a bundle. Asha is hopes and desires. So na munchati asha pindam. This man, even though his body is in not a state to enjoy any sense pleasures, he has not got the maturity that should have come, the mental maturity that would have come with the physical maturity. He has not got, and therefore he is not able to release his grip on the hopes and desires which he has. So this man has spent his entire life doing what? Seeking pleasures, fulfilling his cravings. And because constantly that you have been fulfilling those desires, as we saw in the Bhagavad Gita, desires don't get weaker by being fulfilled. They are like a fire. The more you give fuel to the fire, the stronger they become. And this man who has spent his whole life fulfilling his desires, those cravings have now grown more and more powerful because of being regularly fulfilled. Even though this body has become weak and is not capable of even enjoying what he has, that body is not even capable of giving expression to those desires. Even then, he is not able to let go of the desire. Shankara is saying, learn to live your life intelligently. You should live your life in such a way that you acquire a certain modicum of control over your own mind. So that when you are old and when the body is not in a position to fulfill your cravings, make sure that you do not put yourself in a situation where your body is outwardly incapable of fulfilling any desires, but inwardly all those powerful desires are still there. So he says, don't do that. Make sure that you live your life wisely and you mature out also. As your body matures, your mind must mature. You should be capable of discarding powerful likes and dislikes. You should be capable of seeing that you may have likes, but they are non-binding desires. Likes and desires may be there, will be there because you have a mind, but they should be non-binding desires. They should not be capable of causing you distress if they are not fulfilled. And this is a thing which many of us see in our elders. They grow in age, but not in maturity. Shankara says, as you grow in your physical age, you must mentally mature so that you discover greater and greater freedom and greater sense of independence, self-sufficiency, without any external dependence. This is the text of the thing. And therefore, growth means our inner balance should be there. Inner ananda, inner cheerfulness should be there, which can only come when I am free from strong reactions, when I am free from the grip of strong likes and dislikes, desires and fascination. It means being free from dependence because every desire represents a dependence. And this is what Shastra meant in the old days by saying Vanaprastha Ashrama, the ashrama which is in the forest. And Shastra encouraged you to give up your crutches, which are family, money, all those things, because you have done your job as a grahastha, your children are grown up, they are not in need of your care anymore. And therefore, I don't need family and money. I can use my time for my own jnanam, for my own meditation, for my own swadhyaya. This preparation has to begin today when we are young. It cannot begin when the body is old and weak. So with this, I'll stop in case any questions are there.
Acharya ji,
Hanji.
It's something like जो मिला वो प्रभु कृपा, जो नहीं मिला वो प्रभु इच्छा.
No, that is a bit of, grapes are sour business, isn't it?
नहीं, आप बोले ना you should prepare yourself. So when you start, like it's a basic, a very first step. कि you start gradually. You just cannot do things एक साथ में. तो like अगर आपको बीज बोना है तो it's something like कि जो मिला तो बहुत अच्छा.
No, I think
भगवान.
you need to realize the value of this thing in your life. Supposing for you are blessed by the Lord and you get a lot of things. Supposing you are a very wealthy person and you have lots of servants or lots of money, there is no shortage of any worldly goods. Would you be able to do this? If you are saying Jo Mila Prabhu Kripa, then everything you've got, right? There is no need to withdraw. That's not what I'm saying. You should be able to withdraw. That is what Vanaprastha ashram meant. Even if you're a rich person, finally you should go to the Vanaprastha where you are living with minimum belonging. I'm not saying do that today, but at least learn to withdraw from all that comforts which you have. That is what is meant. Can I live without those comforts? That is the state of my preparation of mind. I may have my likes, but when the likes are not there, the likes are not fulfilled, is my mind free of disturbance is the question.
We do get disturbed when you don't get things.
That's the whole purpose of this whole exercise. You shouldn't get disturbed.
So जैसे रामचंद्र जी थे, so one day they got the Singhasan and next morning dad told him कि you have to go वानप्रस्थ. तो ना उनको मिलने की खुशी थी ना जाने का गम था.
Well, I know, but that is he was a avatar, right? So we are not talking about that. That is of course the ultimate aim, to reach that kind of a dispassion. But we start small. We start with small things and make sure that we are not disturbed. Well, chai mein 2 cup chini kam hai. We have one instead of 2 cups of sugar, 2 spoons of sugar, I got 1 spoon. Do I quietly drink the tea or do I make a fuss? Small things in life. Morning newspaper didn't come. Do I grumble or do I accept it?
Thank you.
Okay, now we look at verse number 16. So please unmute yourself. Agre vanhi prishthe bhanuhu
अग्रे
रात्रौ चुबक समर्पित जानुहु
समर्पित जान.
करतल भिक्षस्तरतल वासः तरुतल वासः तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशापाशः. Okay, so verse similar lines, but this is about a sannyasi, a proper sannyasi. So it says agre vannihi. Agre means in front. So agre vannihi. Vanni is fire. So there is a fire in front of him. Prishthe bhanu. Prishthe is behind. Bhanu is the sun. Surya Devata. So agre vannihi prishthe bhanu. There is a fire in front of him. Behind him is the sun. And ratrau, at night, what does he do? Chubaka samarpita januhu. So januhu is the knees. And in between his knees, he is keeping the chin. So samarpitam, the chin is surrendered to the knees. Literal meaning. Chubaka is the chin. Janu is knees. Samarpita means surrendered to. So Chubaka samarpita januhu. The knees are surrendered to the chin is surrendered to the knees, which means the chin is kept between the knees. And Karatala bhikshas tarutala vasaha. So Karatalam is the Karatala is the palm of the hand. Bhiksha means Bhiksha, arms. So Karatala Bhiksha, he receives Bhiksha in the palm of his hand. He takes the Bhiksha in the palm of his hand. What does it indicate? He has no possessions, not even a vessel. For begging, he does not have a vessel. So he uses his palms for receiving the diksha. So karatala diksha, or any alms which he receives by begging, it comes into his palm. He does not have a vessel. So he's that poor. Then tarutalaha. The tarutala means the ground at the base of a tree. Tarutala vasaha. He lives on the ground at the base of the tree. Right? He has no home. So he's a pakka sannyasi. He has no house. He doesn't have a single vessel also. And yet, Shankara is wonderstruck. What does he say? Tadapi. In spite of this fact that he is a pakka sannyasi, that he doesn't even have a vessel to have food, that he takes the arms in his palms of his hand, he doesn't have a house of his own. He lives on the ground at the base of the tree. And yet, tadapi, even there, munna munchati asha pasha. So pasha is a noose. Asha is desire. Asha pasha means noose of desire. And therefore, even then, he is entangled in this noose of desire. This web of desire is entangled. So what is the learning here? Very beautiful little verse. But the learning from here is very important. What is that?
External renunciation has no meaning unless
Well,
it is internalized.
Yeah, you cannot escape desires by running away from them. You cannot create a distance between yourself and your desires because desires exist in your mind. And they cannot go away by any action on your part. So taking sannyasa is not a solution for desires. Leaving the home, staying in a forest, wearing saffron robes, shaving a head, having knotted hair, these do not make you a sannyasi. What does Krishna calls it in Bhagavad Gita? Krishna calls it jnana karma sannyasa. Sannyasa is the renunciation of action through knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Aham Brahma Asmi. I am Brahman. And in that knowledge, what happens? As Brahman, once I am sure that I am Brahman, once I am convinced that I am Brahman, what is the first step? Before I am convinced that I am Brahman, I must know what is Brahman. So the first step is Brahma Asti. I have to understand that there is Brahman. Brahman exists is step number 1. And step number 2 is that Brahman I am. In step number 1, one learns that Brahman is akarta abhokta. Brahman does not do any action. Brahman does not experience the fruits of any action. So that is step number 1. And in the second step of I am Brahman, what happens is that instead of saying that Brahman does not do any action, then you say, I don't do any action. I am akarta, I am abhokta. This Atmagyanam therefore destroys the doership. The kartrutvam that I have, it destroys. And this is what is meant by jnana karma sannyasa. That is what is a sannyasi. So it is in the mind that desire has to be renounced. And luckily for us, Shastra does not ask you to give up your desires. Shastra but says, grow out of your desires, mature. And what is it that brings about a desire in my mind? I should understand. A desire arises in my mind because I feel that without the object of that desire, I am not complete. I am inadequate. So if I don't have a very great house, then the lack of that very good house, it gives me a sense of apurnatvam, incompleteness. If I don't have children, the lack of children gives me incompleteness, apurnatvam, and therefore the desire comes about. I cannot accept myself as incomplete anyway. The moment I sense or I understand that I'm incomplete for these external reasons, what is the basic urge? To be complete, to be adequate. From that basic desire to be purnam, to be complete, the desire for karma is born. So desires for karma is born because I seek to become purna in different ways. by acquiring wealth, by acquiring a wife or husband, by acquiring children, by acquiring name and fame. So every desire that I have, Shastra tells you, every desire that you have is actually an expression of this inner incompleteness, the inner inadequacy which you are feeling. And any attempt to fulfill that desire is nothing but an attempt to become Purnam, become adequate. And therefore, as Vedantic seekers, one of the rules we should follow is never judge anybody for having a desire. Understand that it is not possible to give up desires even if somebody asks you to do so. Because desiring is not under your conscious control, it just arises. You have to look at the root. What is that root? The moolam of the desire, it is apurnatvam, incompleteness. As long as this sense of inadequacy is inside me, I will never be able to give up desire. So it's like a pressure cooker. The only way to stop the whistling is how to put off the fire. As long as the fire is on, the steam will keep on coming, the whistle will keep on blowing. So unless the basic sense of apurnatvam goes away, my desires will not go away. And Shastra says, you have to understand this sense of inadequacy is not because you are inadequate. Your sense of being incomplete has nothing to do with the fact that you are incomplete. You are not incomplete. Therefore, Shastra prescribes, do karma, fulfill desires, have more desires, fulfill those desires also. And later on, when you begin to see that fulfillment of desires do not end, that stream of desires, when you begin to understand that desires are a never-ending stream and will never take away the sense of incompleteness, that is the time that you begin to introspect that maybe there is something more than this. At that time, go to a teacher. So what is the desire? The desire is to do something. What is the problem? Doing something is no solution. Not doing something is also no solution. What is the solution? Understanding that desire is born out of this sense of apurnatvam is the solution. And that apurnatvam going away, that can only go away from studying the Shastra. Okay. Now we look at verse number 17. Please unmute yourself with the chant. Kurute Ganga Sagar Gamanam.
Kurute Ganga Sagar Gamanam
Pritaparipalanam athava danam.
Paripalanam
Jnana vihina sarvamatena. Muktim na bhajati janma shatena. Okay. So, Kurute Ganga Sagar Gamanam. So he says, you can go to Ganga Sagar and take a dip over there. Or else, Vrata Paripalanam. You can take up austerities. Athava or Danam. You can do charity. So he's giving the various types of disciplines which you can follow. You can do a pilgrimage, go to Ganga, dip in it. So Kurute Ganga Sagar Gaman. You go to Ganga and you take a dip. Or Vrita Paripalanam. You can take up some certain austerities. Athava Danam. You can do charity. But he says, Jnana Vihina, without knowledge of Atma, na bhajati janma shatena. So bhajati here, normal meaning of bhajati is devotion. But here bhajanam is to acquire knowledge. So jnana vihina Na bhajati janma shatena. You will not get mukti janma shatena, even in 100 births. And this Shankara says is not my view. Sarvam sarvamatena. According to all the scriptures, according to all the jnanis, this is the right view. That you can do any amount of austerities, you can do any amount of disciplines you can take up. But without jnanam, na bhajati janma shatena, you will never attain moksha even in 100 births. So dipping in the Ganges, in the Ganga, will not give moksha. Dying at Varanasi will not give moksha. Observing a fast will not give moksha. So fasting is a deliberate act of self-denial. So vrata paripalanam. Taking to austerities may strengthen my willpower, but it is not going to give me moksha. Danam, giving to people who are needy is definitely good karma, definitely will give me good karma phalam, but will not give moksha. And he says, even if you are to do all these things very sincerely, if that effort is jnana vihinaha, not accompanied by atma jnanam, bhajatina muktim janma shatena, in spite of doing all this, even for 100 lifetimes, you will not gain mukti, you will not get liberation. Liberation can come only through jnanam or knowledge. So bondage, what is bondage actually? Bondage is a sense of inadequacy, incompleteness, apurnatvam. And Shastra says that it may be feeling real, but it's a mistake. It's an imaginary problem. It's a projection in your mind only because you are Brahman. There is no way that you can be Apurna. The only solution to the problem of Apurnatvam is what? By understanding that I am always Purna. The only solution to the problem of incompleteness is by understanding that I have never been incomplete. That I was, I am, and I will always be complete. So here remember, this verse should not be taken as looking down upon any sadhana. Any sadhana is basically a spiritual practice meant for purification of the mind, and is all good. Because purification of the mind is an absolute requirement to come to jnana. But we have to remember that purification of the mind is only the means to the end of coming to jnanam. Purification of mind does not produce moksha. Only jnanam produces moksha. So we'll do one more verse, then we'll stop. Verse number 18, we will chant. Sura Mandira Tarumula Nivasaha
Suramandira
Shayya Bhutalamajinam Vasaha Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha Kasya Sukham na karoti Viragaha. Okay. So, Nivasaha. The one fourth word, fifth word from the first line. Nivasaha. He stays. This sannyasi, he stays. Where Suramandiraha, in a temple he stays, or Taru Mulaha, Taru is a tree, Mulaha is the root, so he stays at the base of the tree. So this sannyasi, he has no house, he stays either in a temple or he stays Taru Mulaha, near the root of the tree. And Bhutalam Shayya, so Shayya is a bed, Bhutalam is the surface of the earth. So this surface of the earth is his bed. Shayya Bhutalam. And Ajinam Vasaha, his clothes are made from the skin of a deer. So we have taken as dead deer because he is not going to do hinsa, he is not going to do violence. So a deer which died of natural causes, he has stripped the skin And that is what he's using because he has no money to buy clothes. And sarva parigraha bhoga tyaga. He has renounced all possessions and sacrificed every bhoga, every object of enjoyment he has sacrificed. Shankara says, Kasya sukham na karoti viragha. For a person who has so much dispassion, how can there be no happiness? Kasya sukham na karoti. There has to be happiness. Such dispassion can bring only happiness. So this sannyasi does not have a house. He lives in a tree or a temple and he's happy where he is, which means he is not dependent upon any external object for security. His contentment comes from inside him. Then he does not need to claim that anybody is his. There's no mamakara. I don't need to claim this is mine. There's no mamakara. And he sleeps on the earth. And I said, he wears the clothes of the skin of the deer. He has given up all the possessions. And Shankara specifically says, comments on the word bhoga tyagaha. He says it is possible to give up your possessions, but you may still not give up the enjoyment. You know, you may not have a stock of masala doshas, but you may still want to go and seek them out and enjoy them. The person may still enjoy something, but he does not run after them. He does not chase them. Why is he talking about possessions? Because possessions give all of us a sense of security. Which means what? That I am not secure. Because a person who is secure, he would not feel the need for any possession. So ordinary people like us, we look for sense objects, achievements to make us feel secure and happy. But this Atmagyani, Atmani eva Atmana tushta from the Gita. He is a man who is content in himself. He is a man who has learned to be naturally happy. He has total acceptance of himself. He does not look for any external pleasures at all. And this kind of happiness, kasya sukham na karoti viragaha, for whom will it not bring happiness? So viragaha is the crucial word. Viraga, the V stands for vigataha. So vigataha ragaha, freedom from raga. And raga also includes dvesha over here. Raga and dvesha are all states of mind. So all attachments and aversions have gone away. And therefore dispassion is present. Shankara is saying wherever there is total dispassion, there is also happiness. Wherever there is attachment, wherever there is raga dvesha, there is always unhappiness. Because objects of the world, they only temporarily satisfy my raga dvesha. They give me a temporary relief from them, and in this temporary period, my mind is quiet. In that quiet mind, this happiness, which is my own true nature, is reflected. A very important point being brought out. Whenever you are happy, your mind is quiet. It is not that happiness is coming from elsewhere, but the quiet mind is the reflecting medium for your natural happiness. If the mind is disturbed, doesn't mean that natural happiness is not there in you. It just means it is not reflected, and therefore you don't feel happy. So Shankara says, get rid of the raga dvesha. You will have a permanently quiet mind. In a permanently quiet mind, happiness will be reflected permanently. So you don't need any external object to get rid of your raga dvesha. This is bhoga tyagaha, getting rid of external objects. To the extent that we discover that we are free from the influence of our raga dvesha, to that extent we will discover our internal happiness, the ananda, atma ananda is discovered. The higher the freedom from raga dvesha that we have, the more easily the mind reflects the internal happiness. A lifestyle which is designed to remove these raga dveshas is what we call karma yoga. So with this, I'll stop for today. Any questions we can take.
Om
So?
Acharya.
Yes, Gargi ji, boliye.
So there's the difference between an empty mind and a quiet mind.
There is no such thing as an empty mind. You can't
A
empty your mind.
person who has low IQ, who doesn't have many thoughts, is it an empty mind? Or a
No,
person who's highly intelligent has to quieten his mind?
No, a low IQ mind is not necessarily free of thoughts. It may have thoughts which are dull in nature, but definitely will have thoughts.
So a person with high desires will have a more active mind, and we're
Yes.
talking about
The more
lowering
desires
it.
you have, the more active your mind is. Because you're always looking for some ways of fulfilling those desires. And the key is to see, you can have the desires. Shastra is not saying don't have the desires, but don't make your happiness contingent on the fulfillment of the desire. That is what is called non-binding. When I know that even if my desire is not fulfilled, I will not be disturbed. That is a non-binding desire. It's all right to have those non-binding desires. You have a mind, you will definitely have desires, but the desire should be non-binding.
Yes, thank you.
Acharya, what is Sura Mandira? What is Sura?
Sorry, which verse are we talking about?
The 18th verse, Sura Mandira. What is mean by Sura?
Sura is the law, God, no? Asura and Suras.
Okay.
So Mandira is the abode of the gods.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so with this we'll stop. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya ji.
so much.